Namibia is a fantastic country. You've got the game parks, you've got the desert. Swakopmund is a beach resort in Africa.
Namibia, we love thee. It's a land of diversity. That's where we want to be. Namibia, 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 Namibia,
Yeah, good morning. Welcome to Namibia, to Pisco, Namibia. My name is Vetondoa Kashipena and I'm the receptionist at Pisco. I've been with Pisco for 7 years and I hope you're going to enjoy your stay in Namibia. It's a very warm country, so be sure to enjoy your time and have adventure even if you are working very hard. In Oshiherero, we have got a saying that wherever you go, how far you go, there is always someone who will always be close to you or who will help you throughout. And the saying goes like, "Nokokure kuno woye." So always keep that in mind, and there's always somebody to help you out. And that person can even be me.
My name is Jason Sears. I'm an IT volunteer.
My name is Cedar. I'm an education volunteer.
We've just spent the last few months traveling around Namibia, collecting interviews and working on this documentary.
And we feel it's very important that volunteers hear from other volunteers about what life is like in Namibia serving as a Peace Corps volunteer and the challenges they will face.
So enjoy.
Well, Namibia, as you heard, you have been reading some books, says Namibia, the land of the brave and the land of contrast. So in Namibia, if you go to the north, it's different, the setup. When you go to central Namibia, the setup different. You go to the south, east, and the people are just living different.
We regard the north as being the 4 O's, north of the red line.
Okay.
And people, when they get to Namibia, they will find out what the red line is. The difference between the north and the south is like, it's like two different parts of the world. But the best way to describe this is that you need to look at the history of this country to understand it. And basically it is, as we know before independence, that the North was neglected in terms of resources.
For the last over 200 years, Namibia has been in some form of colonization. Namibia was actually colonized twice, once by the Germans and once by the Afrikaners of South Africa. And their history is filled with wars and very bad treatment of the people that were first living in Namibia.
So when you come to like simple things like class size, North versus South, North is much higher. Average class size is much higher than the South. It is said and generally believed that your better qualified teachers are also in the South as opposed to the North. You know, that kind of thing. Your living conditions is different. Basically in the North, everybody stays with the host family, while in the South you won't find a lot. People are put in hostels. Also the issue of language. In the North, you will use it more because the level of English they use in the North are much lower than in the South. People will tend to speak in their mother tongue more with you in the North, while in the South, because they are trying to improve their English, they will speak to you more in English. So these are just a few things between North and South.
So you can imagine the impacts that's had on a people to have generations of being, in a sense, in many different ways enslaved. And now we're here, it's 16 years after independence, and we're still seeing many of the ramifications of that history.
And the government is doing an amazing job to try and rectify the problems of the past, but it will take some time.
Take a seat, please.
If they happen to miss my class, homework is over here on the board.
I joined the Peace Corps because I've always wanted to be in the Peace Corps.
I feel like I've become integrated with the community a lot.
The kids can snap you out of self-pity and dark moments.
The kids are all wonderful. I don't know.
The kids are just really why I'm here, why I've stayed the 2 years.
There will be ups, there will be downs. Working with Namibians, working with the learners, being here in our beautiful country. But one thing I've learned from volunteers is that in spite of all of this, they hang in there and they try their best. It'll be tough. The toughest jobs you will ever love. But I can assure you, once you've completed your service, that you, in spite of all the difficulties, in spite of what you went through, that you will always think back on your Peace Corps experience as one of the highlights in your life. Basically, our education project, that was the first project when we came into the country. That was the first project that the government asked assistance for to help with education. The first group that came in was just English, and we're still continuing with the English program because the demand is still there. But what we do is we bring in, under that project, we bring in different volunteers. First group that comes in works with TR, what we call Teacher Resource Centers. They work and assist teachers' professional development. That's the first group. Second group that comes in is IT, assisting with IT, which is a big demand in Namibia, wherever you go. And even if you're not an IT volunteer, people will still ask you to assist with computers. And then our biggest group are, of course, English, math, and science teachers. And within the education project, we work from grade 5 to grade 12. But we've just had a shift based on a project review we've had. And we went down to upper primary, because we wanted to get in touch and with learners earlier and have a proper foundation before they go to the secondary. So this will be something new for volunteers that are coming in. Our project basically has 4 goals. And basically, our first goal is working with learners. And most of the volunteers will spend most of their time working on goal number 1.
Good morning. Good morning.
How are you?
We are fine, and how are you, sir?
I am fine, thank you. I was assigned to Andara Combined School. The combined school goes from grade 1 to grade 10. I'm teaching grade 8 mathematics and grade 5 English.
Let's see, my primary assignment is to teach physical science and math. So I teach grade 8 math, grade 9 math, and grade 9 physical science also.
And I teach grades 9 and 10 physical science, and I'm just a teacher also, just around the school.
Teaching English to grade 6 and BIS 5 through 7.
I teach like 75%. They originally wanted me to teach more, or actually not originally, continually. This year and last year they tried to put more on my plate, but I said no, which I'm glad I did because it gets kind of ridiculous. I teach usually like 5 or 6 periods throughout the day out of 8 periods.
I believe every teacher should have a board where they can put up student work. This is a learner who I didn't even know went to the school until finally he showed up to my class. So this is his first assignment ever. And then when he finally showed up, I made him feel special, and now he comes every day.
I call it Shining Stars, and I teach 4 grade 8 English classes. So in each of their classrooms, I have a poster that says my Shining Stars. And you get your name on the poster if you did very well, and you get to come and eat dinner with me. And they have so much of their life is structure that they don't really have a lot of free time, so I squeeze it in between their afternoon study and their evening study. So they're over here for an hour and a half. And we eat, and then we play cards. Every time we play Go Fish. They love that.
Well, it's really frustrating to teach math and science, first of all, because the abilities of learners is very behind what, we would consider, what we would expect in the States. But, a lot of our work is also just to teach English. You speak in English every day. So, one of the kids, his name was Oswald. He's kind of a troublemaker, but I like him. He's a good kid. And the other day, he's always kind of like, the way that Namibians imitate us is they use like kind of a nasal voice. I don't know. You'll learn it. Don't worry. But one day he's like, "Sir, I'm learning American English," and I could tell. His accent was not, Namibian British. It was more Namibian American. So I knew he was listening to me. He was imitating me. He was learning.
So when they come to my house, that's really special for me. It means they walked over an hour to get to my house just to come and visit me. And that's always really great. We usually bake or watch movies or something at my house. The highlights kind of always have to do with when the kids show up. And I never know when they're going to come, but when they do, it's nice. So
I just finished taking a group of 18 learners on an educational tour to Windhoek and Swakopmund. It was an excellent trip. The learners were very free and very comfortable. It's the first time I've seen them behave like children.
And you will not find people who have more positive energy than the kids here. Really, they're the saving grace. They've been my saving grace, absolutely, for the past 2 years. Every day is like, I feel so lucky that I know them. And
our second goal, which can sometimes be problematic, is working with teachers. You might not have a counterpart because there's not enough teachers in schools, but we encourage volunteers to work on that second goal.
I split the classes with the teachers now, so I take half of grade 5, 6, and 7, and the other teacher takes the other half at the same time. So I plan my lessons and I show them my plans, and they can see what I'm doing, and it helps them plan as well, and make sure that we're on the same page.
And then I have teacher classes from 1:15 to 2:50. Read with the teachers. Just like I'll just print out stories, and then we'll take turns reading one page at a time, and then go after each page go over words they didn't know.
Teachers are able to do things, able to do projects and stuff like that. It's just they don't know how to start them. And then if I start something, they like me to finish it.
There's a lot of hardworking people at the school, and there's a lot of people who have good ideas. It's just the motivation of getting it initiated and really following through with their ideas that is more of the problem, I think.
I think that the most important responsibility for us is to set a good example and not just tell people the things we think they should be doing to better their lives, but to show them and to do it ourselves. I could talk all day about how alcoholism is a problem in Namibia and people shouldn't drink the way they do. But if they see me on Friday night getting hammered in the shebeen, then it defeats the purpose.
The third goal basically is working with resources, assisting libraries, computers, just assisting people in laboratories, resources, because a lack of resources is one of the things that we suffered after apartheid, after it was ended. And a lot of schools do not have the necessary resources. So the volunteer can play a part there.
Of course, there's a shortage of supplies. There's not enough books. There's poorly written books. Sometimes learners don't even have paper or pencils or pens to write with. So in that case, it's a little bit more difficult, but it's just an everyday challenge you get used to.
My work with the library has just been trying to promote usage of it to try to make it interesting. I'd say when I inherited the library, it probably had about half of what this is right now. I got most of my resources through nonprofit donations.
A lot of my kids, even in grade 3, begged to go to the library. And so I really worked on the library and doubled the number of books through donations. And
I applied for school renovations, and I applied for sports equipment, and I applied for newspaper stuff, which I all got successfully.
Our funding came from a lot of different places. We raised money at the school, in the community. We're donating to labor. We got funding from the Peace Corps HIV/AIDS Committee. We also got some funding from the states, just a donation from family and friends.
Just exposing them to that, to know that there's information, even encyclopedias, the library altogether. Just letting them know that there are resources that you don't have to always just listen to what people say, and you can look it up yourself.
Last but not least is working together with the community.
One of the things that I do is go walk around, and I especially like to walk around in some of the poorest places of, say, Blakta in this area. And as I'm walking around, I try to make friends. I talk to just about anyone that will talk to me.
We've started having some kids from the schools coming into the center, teaching them basic skills as well. Most of our learners have never touched a computer before, so we're doing introduction to just using it, Word, Excel, basic office skills. Most of them are looking to get jobs, Most of them are older learners.
Integrating into the community here in town is maybe nothing like integrating into a rural community, because the community, you can't even figure out what that is or what it means. There's a Tswana community, there's a Herero community, there's a white community, there's a different white community, there's a Damara community, an Ovambo community, even a Caprivian community. Every culture of Namibia is represented here somehow, and there are so many factions. And sometimes accidentally aligning yourself with one community closes you off to another. My approach is just to try and be part of the school community, because that's where I'm here to work.
Not as many times as I should have, but I would go to churches, and the reception at churches to me being there was wonderful. They would have me stand up, introduce myself, they would always greet me. Sometimes I would be the only English-speaking person there, like English as my main language, and they would have a translator come up with the minister and give the sermon just so I could understand it as well.
Integrated into cultures, you know, I'm very inquisitive just in general. I ask questions all the time with the kids about their cultural traditions, and with my coworkers. You know, we were recently at a school that was a couple hours outside of Oamaru. We were driving for a long time, and it was the entire way back. They were just telling me these funny little traditions and quirky beliefs that they had in their culture, and it was, you know, I think when you show an interest in somebody else's culture, it really helps you break into their community, and you'll feel more welcomed. You know, if they think that you're genuinely interested, they'll welcome you.
The health project is called CHAP. CHAP stands for Community Health and HIV and AIDS. The health project started in 2004. We're currently on our third or fourth year of trainees. It focuses on putting Peace Corps volunteers in the community, at the community level, and also at the regional level, working with government and non-government agencies throughout all 13 regions.
I'm a health volunteer in Lüderitz. I work at Ministry of Youth, National Service, Sport and Culture at the Youth Center.
I am a community health volunteer working for the Ministry of Youth here in Amanus, which is in the middle of the Kalahari Desert.
I'm a health volunteer with a multi-purpose youth center.
We're at CA Omaheke, Catholic AIDS Action.
I'm a health volunteer in Sambue, Namibia.
The goals are in two areas. The first goal is to strengthen capacity of the government. I'm working with the Ministries of Health, Ministries of Education, Ministries of Youth, Ministries of Local Government and Housing.
If people come in and need assistance with anything that my office can provide, I provide assistance. The primary assignment is to assist the youth office in workshops, providing HIV/AIDS information, that sort of thing.
My day-to-day is different every day. Some days I'm in the office writing proposals, asking for funding for workshops. Sometimes I'm meeting with the Girls Club.
The other goal is to strengthen the non-government sector. So that's the faith-based organizations such as Catholic AIDS Action, the Evangelical Lutheran Church on AIDS. Also working with non-government organizations such as the Namibian Red Cross Society and some of the other smaller community-based organizations. Capacity building is the main thrust.
I imagined coming over here and sharing all of this, brand new information or getting the information out. And when I got here, I realized people do have the information, and it's just trying to help them figure out creative ways to disseminate that, I guess, to get the message across.
I do a boys club, a girls club, an AIDS club. I'm also sometimes involved with the environmental club.
And there are lots of different things that we do here. Here you can see on this side there are books and games and other donations and pamphlets that we get. Some of them are used to play with OVCs, and some of them are used to give to community members or volunteers and trainees.
Currently in Lüderitz, there aren't a whole lot of HIV/AIDS activities going on, or organizations that are busy. We have Red Cross, but they've run out of funding. People in Need is here now, and they're a really great organization that's working really grassroots level, helping with to empower the support group. So I've worked with them a little bit.
Here are some of our lovely volunteers that volunteer in home-based family care. We also have our YEP program, the Youth Education Prevention Program. It's like a HIV life skills course that does like self-esteem and how to say no, peer pressure, basic facts of HIV, all that kind of stuff.
I work a lot in the community, at the fish factory, with the high school. Yes, one of the community HIV/AIDS groups. Lots of little things here and there. Luderitz HIV support and counseling group. The man who started the group just walked into my office and just was asking for information. He said he was unemployed and he just wanted to talk with the people about HIV. Give him some pamphlets and some condoms and talk to him about how the information that was in the pamphlets, and he has gone and just talked to over 400 people by himself.
Me, I've kind of helped with a little bit of everything, the different trainings, and I do things with the volunteers themselves, like skill building. And I have a dance class that I hold with some kids on Sunday, either here at the office or at one of my friends' places who has a kindergarten in the community. So most days I go to work 8 o'clock. Could be that I'm in the office, could be that I'm at a training, could be that I'm doing something else.
I think it's much more important that I understand the people here and that they see me and recognize my willingness to learn from them and to do what I can and to help in any way I can, and just spread good feelings between countries.
The biggest responsibility, I think, is really trying to take the work we're doing and kind of finding a way to shift it to Namibians in a way that's manageable in the future.
I had a lot of secondary projects throughout the 2 years, and it's interesting because the things that I planned to do beforehand, before I actually got to site and learned about site, failed completely. But the things that I kind of picked up as opportunities that just passed through my way, they did amazingly.
The secondary project that I'm most proud of is the Girls Club, and the Girls Club meets once a week on Wednesday afternoons, and it's all the grade 7 girls, so it's about 15 girls. And each week they do some kind of craft or AIDS-related project, or we talk about some kind of life skills issue. And on Tuesdays, we draw names, so 2 or 3 girls come to my house and bake something for the meeting on Wednesday, and that's probably their most favorite part, is baking cupcakes and stuff.
People in this community seem to be really interested in learning about computers. So me and my roommate, who's also a Peace Corps volunteer, have developed a class called Promoting AIDS Education Through Computer Literacy, where we combine basic computer skills and HIV/AIDS information.
I don't have a lot of secondary projects. Sort of renovating the lab is one of my secondary projects, but it hasn't gone very far for a variety of reasons.
Secondary projects mostly have just focused on advancing the library. The kids here love to read. A lot of my kids, even in grade 3, beg to go to the library.
Well, I'm in charge of the library. It's very nice. So we have library club, and English club, and debate club.
We reorganized all the books. We labeled them using the Dewey Decimal System and put all these different colored labels. We have fiction books with the red, nonfiction books with green, encyclopedias with yellow, and all sorts of magazines are in orange. We also got a bunch of chess sets and some puzzles to try to make it, to some extent, a multi-purpose center, because they can come listen to music, they can come draw, work on art projects, they can play chess, they can do puzzles. We have Sudoku.
Had to fix all the books, clean off the shelves, and basically have a system for all the books and checking out. And then you have to train the kids how to check out the books the proper way, to check out the books, to hold the books, to not give it to their friends, to not eat meat when they have the books in their hands, those things like that.
I started a girls' soccer team at my school, which was pretty successful. The girls are really interested and they like to play, and it's
I like to play, so it's really fun. Last year I had 2 girls make the national under 17 girls or women's national team. They traveled to South Africa. This year one of the girls is also going to be going there.
Volleyball was kind of like just kind of given to me because the previous volunteer had done that, and it's fun. It's sports are a nice way to kind of connect with the kids, and it's also a good way to gain their respect in a way that you can use in the classroom. So I enjoy doing volleyball a lot, and it's also something I like to play. So when we scrimmage, sometimes I jump in and play with them.
The AIDS Club has been a lot of fun because it's a neat way to see the kids outside of class. I like that it's a smaller group of kids than just the whole high school.
I'm pretty lucky because I work in town and I live at the secondary school hostel, and then I teach part-time in the location. So I feel involved with multiple communities within Oamaru. I teach remedial English at primary school grade 7, who I've partnered up with the grade 7 teacher who was struggling himself to teach these learners who were really low level with English. So we've developed a curriculum for their school that I've also helped implement at a few other schools in the area.
For my school, it was clear cut. There was no running water. There was nothing for the kids to drink all day long. And so from day one, my first goal was to help bring water to the school.
I am working with a youth group called Kesueta to develop what I am describing as the Herrero Kinkos, where we will type resumes, print out things, type things up for people, print pictures, photocopy.
The primary focus of the Oshikuku Basket Project is income generation for women in and around Oshikuku. Basically once a month we meet with, and when I say we, I mean myself and a couple of out-of-school youth translators. We meet with the women once a month in 2 different groups, and we come together and price the baskets. We have a pricing size structure that they've come up with and that we've talked about together so that it's fair pricing, and then we discuss as a group what each basket would be worth, and if they agree to it, then we exchange money at that meeting. I buy the baskets, and then from there they go home, let's say, or wherever they choose to go, and for the next month they're working on baskets.
You have things planned and you think it's going to work out that way, and it never does. But if you're patient and if you're flexible and you have a sense of humor about it, eventually it'll all work out. Not the way you planned, but you'll get there.
I remember back to when I was first interested in Peace Corps, and I attended a lecture, a talk by a former volunteer. She was working in the Dominican Republic, and her big project when she was there was to install a water line to a community. And I can remember thinking to myself, how in the world could you ever do something? How could you get the infrastructure to bring water to a community? And I remember thinking to myself, that must be so difficult. I could never do that. And then I came to Namibia, and it's the first project I picked up. And now it's almost completed, and it brings me a lot of self-confidence for the things I take on in the future.
I get up around 6 o'clock and have breakfast and go to school from 7 to 1. I teach approximately 5 classes every day, 4 English classes and 1 or 2 PE classes. And after school I help out in the library.
Okay, my average day I wake up at 5:30. I leave my house at 6:30 to go to school. Then we have school from 7 to 1. And when I go home, eat lunch. Usually at 2:30 I have soccer practice.
There's never like a day-to-day. I mean, you have like stuff that usually happens, but there's always something that like surprises you completely, and like, I mean like completely. Like something will happen and you're just like, what? You've been here for like a year and a half and you're like, what? That makes no sense whatsoever.
The strange thing is every day, my day is different, but it's become normal that it's different every day.
I live in what you would call a modern house. We have, electricity, running water. I have a Namibian roommate and my own bedroom. And I live at the school. It's what's called a hostel school, which is what in the States we'd call a boarding school.
I live with a family on a traditional homestead. There's no electricity or running water, but I do have a tap on the homestead, so I don't have to worry about fetching water. The school has electricity, which is about a 45-minute walk away, so I do have access to electricity when I need it.
Good morning. Fine, how are you?
Fine. So this is the kitchen. It's very nice.
Hot plate.
That's where the dirty dishes are. That's where the food is. There's the bed. And the desk. And the 2 chairs. And the bathroom.
We have electricity. Up until recently we had running water. There seems to be a problem with the borehole or something. So we're having to do splash baths and that kind of thing, but it's okay.
Front entrance of the house leads to the kitchen. Brandly renovated, new cabinets, refrigerator, stove, lights working. For an example, I could always eat bread, potatoes, the lovely ramen noodles, fried rice packets, hot chocolate for when it gets really cold outside.
I buy a lot of pasta, and the children, when they come over 1 or 2 times a week, it's easy to make a lot of pasta. So we usually have pasta and some canned fruit or something.
I pretty much eat the same thing every day for the morning. I'll have like a granola, like a bowl of granola with milk, or just oats if I'm out. Milk doesn't keep very long, so I'd use just powdered milk, which tastes fine.
I buy food in Hababis, which is about 180 kilometers north of here. When you only go out of sight once, maybe every 3 weeks, 3 weeks is probably a minimum, especially in your second year. So you're buying a ton of food. Mostly what I'm buying is canned vegetables and pasta and a lot of peanut butter and jelly.
Getting food here, you can get the basics. You can get rice, pasta, some canned vegetables, not on a consistent basis. But a lot of the food I'll just get in Hababis and bring it down. I cook really boring stuff. I don't have an oven, so I can't bake anything.
If I cook, I eat pasta, rice. If people give me meat, then I'll eat meat, but I don't usually buy meat. It's usually just given to me.
My site is, I would say, by American standards, a small town, but by Namibian standards, probably a large town. It's got 10,000 people.
Beersheba is a farm. It's in the deep south, so it's very flat. There's not much trees or anything. It's very dry there. It's very hot most of the year, except for winter when it's very cold. There's not too many people. It's mostly farmers, goat farmers, and then the school children, and then kind of the pensioners.
When I first came to Luderitz, I was really amazed at the landscape. It is really beautiful here, but I also had this increasing feeling of dread as we just kept driving and driving and driving into and the grass kept getting shorter and shorter, and there's just sand. So I'm really glad that once we get to Luderitz, it's really beautiful and it's a nice proper town with a coffee shop and all that.
There is a very reliable system of transportation that has been set up. There's about 3 guys that own these big things they're called Vengers. They're kind of just like SUVs by Toyota. And in the morning, around 6 or 7 o'clock, they drive all around the area and they pick up people. You pay 65 Namibian dollars, they take you all the way down. And then in the evening, at about 3 o'clock, they drive back.
Hikes can be difficult. It's easier to get them out. It's harder to get them in. So sometimes I end up struggling to get it in. It's partially because there's only maybe like 5 people to have cars, and so you have to go in on their time, and sometimes their time is completely different than your time. The combi only operates during the week, so like if you want to get in, say Sunday, sometimes there's no hikes available, so you have to like work with what's available.
Transport.
Hitchhiking.
Yeah.
The situation sucks. Okay. I think the way to deal with it is to meet local people and, you know, people that you can trust, and also don't leave your site too much.
On the weekends, the same thing. Sleep, the kids come to the house to visit, getting ready for the next week, go into Hobabas for the weekend if you want to, and watching plenty of movies.
Don't have that much at my house, so we don't have a TV or anything. I watch movies if I'm going to do anything to pass the time like that, but read books. I read a lot of books. It's a lot of quiet time. It's a lot of alone time.
Peace Corps is interesting because there's always challenges in Peace Corps, and there's stuff that you cannot expect. And they just kind of come at you, and there's stuff that you're not used to because they're completely different from the challenges you face in the States.
Training was probably more difficult for me than service, I've found. And when I was in training, there was a volunteer who was currently serving who came, and I was talking to her, and she told me it's important to remember that training is training and service is service, and they're very, very different.
All of us have shortcomings and deficiencies in our personality. And back in America, we can find coping mechanisms, and we can find ways to kind of cover up or hide those deficiencies. When I've seen us be put into environments like Namibia in Peace Corps service, those deficiencies become magnified, and like maybe on a daily basis, the buttons are pushed and the deficiencies are brought out into light. And so it's hard to ignore those things about yourself that you should work on, because they're constantly in your face. And if you're going to stay for 2 years, you have to find some way to deal with those deficiencies. So I actually think that's one of the best things about service for volunteers. You're forced to face some of your demons, and then you're forced to come to peace with them.
So you have to be very open to like different things coming your way. You have to be very open to something you might not expect, and something that you might perceive from your culture as being a bad thing, but from their culture it's just a normal thing, and maybe it's even a good thing.
A lot of times new people come to the school, and as soon as you meet them, you say hello, you smile, and they're like, I love you. In the beginning, I was just like, what? Now I think it's so hilarious, so I just usually just have a laugh about it afterwards.
Their English skills are very poor. So you're going to be teaching and you'll say something and no one will understand it. Or like the one kid, the one like really smart kid that you're helping, he'll understand it, but the rest won't.
At the beginning, it was very difficult because the learners, although they knew English, were not used to an American accent. So I had to make sure that I enunciated and spoke slower. But as the year progressed, the kids got a lot more accustomed to my voice, my intonation, and it was easy for them to pick up.
The biggest challenge as a volunteer is working with my colleagues, trying to get them to understand why I do things the way I do. I think because we have just different views, different cultures on things, it's very hard to motivate them. As a volunteer, you come here to try and help people develop, but some parts of this culture don't allow for that.
In coming to Namibia, and when I first arrived, and I think it's true for most volunteers, you have some expectations of the things you'll accomplish, and maybe that you'll come in and like a knight on a horse with shining armor. And in a developing country, the infrastructure just isn't always there. Like in Namibia, it's easy to forget that, because the water is here, the roads are here, the buildings are here, and it's easy to kind of come to a normal sense of how things should be. But really, it's a developing country, and aspects of the government and private businesses just don't run the same way they do in other countries.
The biggest challenge to adapting to Namibian culture has definitely been the different views Namibians have with time. You know, I'm coming now or I'll be back now means, you know, anywhere from 30 minutes to 45 minutes. I oftentimes am with my colleagues and I don't know where we're going, don't know why we're making a turn, who we're going to see, and we're all speaking English. Things are just kind of chaotic, and that's just the way it runs.
And it can become very frustrating. For example, I might send a fax to someone, call them and see if they received the fax. They'll say yes. Then a week later, when nothing's happened, I'll call them again and they'll say, no, the fax wasn't received. And I might go through that process 3 or 4 times in a row before the fax actually gets through. Those things are kind of common here. And it's just a symptom of some of the past and the way the infrastructure is set up and the skills that people have. I think it's easy when you see these things to forget that people have had a really bad education for a long time and they're lacking training in certain areas that we take for granted in America. And some people see that and it's easy for them to begin attributing it to a people instead of a skill that they're missing.
When you come in as a Peace Corps volunteer, you want to be so appeasing to everybody that a lot of times the Peace Corps volunteers don't see that line at first and they get walked on or like get taken advantage of by like people in their community. And so it's very good to be aware of that. And it's not like something that it's not a terrible thing, but you just want to be aware of that because that contributes to your happiness.
I feel very overwhelmed with my workload. Part of it is because I do bring it upon myself.
I was not trained as a teacher. I had never taught before, besides tutoring at a college level. I thought teaching was going to be very easy. And so I was just like, oh, I can teach all these classes. It will be very easy.
Oftentimes, the reasons why I take extra work on is because it's the learner who's going to lose out. It's not the teacher.
I think it's really important to bring humor into your lesson plans because if you can't like somehow find what you're doing funny, then it's dull. It's dull for you, it's dull for them. So I like to make jokes in class and I'll kind of, like there's a lot of pictures you have to draw for science classes. I'll draw funny pictures and if you can make them laugh once a period, then it makes that period all the more bearable.
Don't think that you will just come and know everything and don't overload yourself.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. Even if you don't feel like you're prepared for teaching, you just go with the flow, you pick it up, it comes to you. You just have to have faith. And of course, the first few days you're nervous, but it's a process you get very used to very quickly.
I feel bad for every hard time I gave any teacher in my life.
Another challenge I think was racism. 30% of my community is white and the rest is not white.
The community here is, I mean, it's very visibly separated still from apartheid. If you walk around town, you can very much see the differences.
You learn a lot about people and you learn about where they're coming from and the challenges that they've faced in their life dealing with racism and apartheid, the effects of apartheid and the history of their family. And it's easier to relate to them then.
I think the biggest misconception Namibians have about Americans is that we are all comfortable, have plenty of money, and if we don't now because we're volunteering, then our families do at home. I hope that through kind of the way I live my life, they understand that I don't have an endless stream of money, and you know, try to, instead of give out money, just give them some time, hang out with the kids, that sort of thing.
When I first arrived, the TRC that I was assigned to was not functioning. So in the beginning, I couldn't run any workshops in the beginning because I hadn't established a relationship with the teachers yet, and I hadn't done any observations. So it was a struggle for me to find something to do for a while. I spent a lot of time making the TRC look pretty because I just didn't have anything else to do.
I would say my biggest challenge is living alone. I really miss my family and friends. And so like I said, I live at the school. I really I hardly leave the school except on the weekends. And so that's really kind of my challenge. Like how do I stay like entertained? And there's a limit. Like you can't teach children 24 hours a day. You need time for yourself.
This is my second site. I had a site change during my first year. I had a site change after the second term.
My first assignment was in the north, teaching at a university.
When you make a site change, it immediately feels like a fresh start. So that's good. Any kind of fresh start is good because you have a clean slate and you feel like you can do anything because you already made all the big mistakes. So I think whenever anybody has a site change, unless it just goes drastically wrong, you're going to feel on top of the world at the beginning. But something that you probably can't shake from the back of your mind is the guilt of having left the kids at the first site.
It's a frustrating process, but it was worth sticking through, and it was worth changing. And I mean, there were times when I was considering leaving because there's no work, but I'm glad I stuck through it and found a job that works for me.
I don't regret making a site change because I feel like I've been a lot more effective here, and also I didn't have a choice. But if I had the whole thing to do over, I wish that I had been at one place for 2 years.
You have to force yourself to get into the community, Sitting in your room is not going to solve problems. That's kind of what the Peace Corps is about. Like, you need to go the extra step. You are the one carrying yourself to that next step.
I've spent a lot of time with the two communities in Marienthal separately.
I love walking around my village. The people are amazing. From day one, I felt very, very welcome. I think it's definitely an advantage to being up north and being in a rural area. People are very friendly.
I talk to just about anyone that will talk to me. And doing that, if I'm feeling a little bit empty, it makes me feel better. And then what also happens is I get so many friends that now if I walk around even just a little bit, I'll see 4 or 5 or 6 people that I know and they'll greet me and I feel nice.
I started a weekly card game with local teachers so that I could just that's a good way to make friends.
My emotions are much more like highs and lows than compared to the States. And I've had to find ways to deal with that. And sometimes I thought that would be not hard for me, but it's turned out to be increasingly hard.
The way I cope with adapting to the differences in time, I guess, is just trying to have a sense of humor about things. So I try to laugh with friends or with colleagues about what we're doing. I write, letters home. I write in a journal.
When I need to deal with stress from the daily life here, I rely a lot on exercise and running, getting away, just trying to take my mind off of things. And it doesn't work so well sometimes because when I run, I only think about the things that happen during the day. So the fact of the matter is that this is your life now, and there's not really a clear-cut escape. So for me, I deal with things. I think about the best way to solve the problem, and I just go for it. There's not really any way to just like release the baggage because it's part of you now.
There's a million different coping strategies. Some of them that volunteers pick, or that I pick even, are positive and some of them aren't positive. Some people retreat from their job. So I know there's volunteers that will just disappear from their site for periods of time just because they've had so much and they can't handle it anymore, so they need to retreat. Other people just work like crazy so they don't have to think about things. Some people are drinking, some people are doing all those things. I think what happens, all of us have some positive coping mechanisms and negative. The important thing is that the positive coping mechanisms outweigh the negative ones so you can at least function at an appropriate level.
It's nice having a roommate. That helps with coping skills because I can talk to him and he can talk to me. We can bounce frustrations and ideas off each other.
A community of concern is a group of people that can help you when you need help. Right now, our community of concern is made up of our Peace Corps friends, our family, the APCDs, other Peace Corps staff, the PCMO. And just recently, we were trying to add another segment to that community of concern called VSN or PSN. It's a peer support network or a volunteer support network. So it's a group of people that have gone through some training and that are standing by, waiting at their phones for someone to call and say, hey, I need to talk about something in a confidential manner. So we're hoping that by introducing this aspect of the community of concern, that some people that maybe aren't getting some help from friends or from family might have another option for help while they're in Namibia.
Like from these challenges that I've faced, I definitely feel like I've grown, I've become stronger, and I've become more aware of myself and like what I stand for and like who I am, all that kind of stuff.
There's going to be frustrations. Your job may not be what you want, it probably won't be, but if you stick with it, and you can make it work. If you stick with it, good things can happen.
I think if you stick it out, you're gonna find that it's worth it. If it's not going okay for you and you want to go home, then I think that's your decision. But if you stay for 2 years and you commit yourself, you won't regret it.
I'm happy with what I've done, and I think it's been a good thing for me, and I think I've done a good job helping my community, helping my school, helping my kids, you know, and I wouldn't change anything if I were to go back.
What I say to the volunteers and to the trainees that are soon to be volunteers is to never give up. That community health work is very difficult, but it is so rewarding.
My advice is to enjoy it and stick through it. There's ups and downs in Peace Corps, but in the end, the ups outweigh the downs for sure. And it's an experience that you'll carry with you for the rest of your life. So just be strong through those downs so you can enjoy the ups.
One of the things that I'm still the most proud of, I've thought about this for a long time. It's not necessarily something that I accomplished here in Namibia. It's that I even made it into, that I joined the Peace Corps. It's like a leap to join the Peace Corps. And the fact that I did that, it's now opened my mind to the fact that I can leap into other unexpected things.
There's going to be some point where you're going to think about eating, about going home. And the only way to keep yourself from doing that is to remember your commitment, either to yourself or to the learners, whatever it is that brought you here. That should stay at the forefront of your mind.
The thing that you'll learn is just the bond that exists between volunteers. I mean, that sounds cheesy, I know, but it's so strong. That is, like that and the kids, that's why you're going to stay, is the friendships that you form with volunteers and, of course, other host country nationals, and also the kids. The kids are, like, that's why you do it every day. That's why you get up.
I'd say that also what you're doing is very valuable because there are lots of communities, lots of organizations that really need your assistance. They need your inspirational words. They need your new ideas just to refreshen what they're doing, to give them new direction, to give them support.
So otherwise, I would like just to appreciate in advance to the job, specifically Mark is doing at our school, and in general what the other volunteer teachers are doing. Remember, somebody working at a place without being paid, it needs somebody with a big heart to accommodate. Really, thanks a lot.
So maybe you get in a taxi and you realize about halfway home you don't want this guy to know where your house is.
Crush it. But my good friend Cedar, who's holding the camera now.
Home life. What if I don't cook?
Planted. I'm
just like, thank you. Okay, put it on now.
What else to tell you? I like to keep my classroom clean. I sweep my own floors. I think it sends a message that, you know, Mr. Nelson's here to work, I guess.
He's filming me. I don't know why. I'm not saying anything interesting. So I didn't know what was going on. I was confused.
Most of my day-to-day, pretty boring. Not a whole lot on a day-to-day basis happens. I sit here.
Yes, I agree.
Oh God. For people in training.
Okay. Well, my name.
A lot of pasta, and it's easy to make a lot of pasta, so we usually have pasta. And I eat a lot of pasta.
No, go in, it's fine.
Ask me if I'm from Swakopmund. No.
As far as the underwear, rigged up a system of 2 clotheslines. And on the first one, I put an African cloth that I got at the market with clothespins, so it's covering the second line. And then I put the underwear behind. That's perfect.
For the first week after I come back, I live in luxury by eating cheese and tomato toasties. Anything like cheese, you have to eat as fast as possible.
New, because we just got separate positions for coordinator and admin assistant recently, so it's very exciting. We're getting
Wait, for number 1, they take A, B, C.
Any advice for volunteers? I remember a lady told me to eat a lot of ice cream. I never knew why. That's not my advice.
Don't let other Americans or volunteers influence your views about Namibia. I know it's strange for me to say don't listen to Americans for my advice, but...
Really? Got any other
You have to do this.
body trips?
Some days you really do want to use that stick, so it's best to just leave it in the classroom or give it to the teacher, let them handle it. But okay, feel free to add that part out though. Some days you really just want to.
Can I tell you my combi story? And there's a lot of noise, like the chunk noise. Trailers come unhitched or something. It starts to come up from under the seat. So I grabbed all my stuff and leaped out. The whole cab of the combi is sprayed with water and steam. Pulls out the fan. It has 7 blades on it. 2 of the blades are completely missing. And another combi driver pulls up and pulls out a plastic fan. But no one else seems to think this is amazing. He puts the new fan on and it takes 20 minutes and we get back in the combi and we're on our way.
Ons wil welkom sê aan almal van julle wat na Namibia toe kom.
And good luck to you, and know that we're here to support you, and we're very proud of the work that you're doing.
So my name is Jason. Or should we do both first class? Okay, you can do your name. Yeah. Okay, let's also do a second. I'm Cedar. I'm an education volunteer. We wanted to make this video. Wait, what was I gonna say again? You're gonna say.